Hey, Carlos. How's it going? I love how we said let's start, and then you went to drink your coffee. My the dead time at the beginning of recordings is my absolute
Oh,
favorite.
oh my God.
How's it going this
You
morning?
you cracked me up with that hey Carlos and that was so wildly not of the moment. Um
Well, we turned the
uh
recording on, so I went from back behind the stage mode to now we're on mode.
yeah. No, I didn't know you were gonna get into character. I was already just kind of here being me thinking that would help. It wasn't.
All right. Well, this
I'm good.
is our Ask Us Anything session. And though we know there are many questions, we don't have many people in the room with us. So we're going to go through some of the questions that folks shared when they registered for conflict
All
resolution or
right. And
anti-fascism.
Pam from San Diego says, which of you is the most neuro spicy?
I think you're the only one competing for that prize, and it's probably definitely you.
I well, okay. All right. Well, Pam, there you go.
Yours
Definitely
is,
mostly me.
I mean, just based on you making that up in the moment for no reason, I'm going to say it's you. But that's also not what we're here for right now. I will say real quick to everyone that we are reading through the answers that come in when people register. And it's okay if you didn't put a lot of thought or time into them when you did. Please come ask us other questions you have in the learning lab. Um, and we are taking a look through, and that's based on the answers. Are we selected the topics for the bonus live streams we're doing based on the questions we saw in people's registration responses. So that's why we're talking about what to do with problematic white folks. If you missed that one, you can catch the recording. I think it was a pretty good conversation. We also did one on trauma and activism because we see a lot of folks in their registration answers were saying that they're having a hard time staying regulated in the moment. They're having a hard time figuring out what to do with people who are really activating to them, what to do with folks moving from activation. So I'd say go take a look at that one. We also have a 30-day nervous system reset that you can register for and learn more about the nervous system and how to regulate yourself in the moment. And I'll say, not having found another word for that that works super well for me, regulation doesn't mean being calm when the world's falling apart. And, like the dog sitting in the middle of the fire saying, this is okay, everything's fine. That's not what we mean. We mean, are you able to keep your frontal lobe engaged and not go into fight, flight, fawn, or freeze responses when things are hard so that you can make intentional strategic choices instead of reacting out of fear and past harm?
Yeah, it's not
And
that edge lord humor. That is not what we are doing. It is not a bastardized version of keep calm and carry on.
No. And then we have another one scheduled on ableism and activism for Tuesday, I believe. So come
Yep.
check those out either live or on the recordings. And we're going to get into some of the other questions that don't fall into those categories from the registration questions. So, got a couple here in the chat. Carlos, you have anywhere you would like to start?
Oh, we're gonna get into it. We're getting into it. Oh, you said that sounded like Bill Cosby to you. I'm not gonna do that.
Who does that? That's
Um,
not Bill Cosby.
oh, it's just me being excited to get into it. Let's just get into it.
It definitely sounds like you're trying to
Um,
sell me jello.
no. That would, because if we were gonna sell Jello, we'd be much more specific.
Oh, yeah, that is worse for sure.
Yeah, much worse. Hey, engaging with people with different views in a meaningful way. How do you do that, Teresa? What's your thought on that? How do you engage with people with different views? Here's the question for me. What are different views?
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's the first question we would ask if this person was here with us live today.
Yeah.
We spoke to this somewhat in the workshop, right? So there's dealing with people who actively disagree with you and are like mega supporters. There's a different set of strategies than people who are like on your side and you disagree about tactics. For me, the most effective way to deal with folks, and then there's people who like you don't just understand what they're saying. They seem like they're in a different reality than you're in sometimes. The one is like, what's your goal? in engaging with this person? Are you trying to fix them or coerce them or convince them? If that is your goal, it's unlikely to be effective, right? And a lot of us in this culture have been taught to try to like coerce people into believing or thinking or doing what we want them to do. And like, first thing you have to let go of is the belief that you're going to save someone or fix someone or convince someone. If you're willing to just like take a breath and let that go for a minute, and that's much easier said than done, because a lot of this like saviorism and fix it and make everyone do what I want them to do energy is pretty well woven into our nervous systems and psyches. But if you're willing to like take a breath and step back, then you can think about, what is your goal? Are you trying to, where is this person on that spectrum of roles that we talked about in the workshop? And are you trying to invite them over to your side? Are you trying to mitigate the harm they're causing? Or do you just want to understand where they're coming from? Are they your neighbor and you just need to learn how to get along because you have to share space whether you want to or not? So kind of clarifying, what is your goal in engaging with this person with this different view? You know, where are they in the spectrum? What is your goal in engaging with them? And then some of the most powerful tools we have, but they're hard to access if we're in that place of like reactivity or trying to force our will or be right or get our way, is just curiosity and empathy. So just asking a question like, that's an interesting point of view. This is one of my most favorite tools, and I got this one from our colleague John Ashford years ago. But it people make fun of me now, is like, because it's what I say all the time, like, oh, that's interesting. And it's because I used to be such a highly judgmental person that this one simple magical tool really just helped me catch myself when I was starting to go into like evaluate or respond or react or criticize. Like, why would you do that? Instead of saying, why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense to me. I'll be like, oh, that's an interesting point of view. And the reason it's magic is because it just takes you out of that immediate impact of like, I need to be right, or I need to explain to you, or I need to correct, or I need to agree or disagree, to just like a neutral place of, oh, that's interesting. And something that's interesting invites curiosity and engagement instead of needing to jump in to defend why it's right or wrong or good or bad or I agree or I disagree, which is what a lot of our communication is patterned to do. Um, so those ones for me, that's an interesting point of view. And then if you can be curious and ask a question, like, would you tell me more about that? Or, oh, that's interesting. And then change the topic to something else I'd rather talk about because I don't want to know more. You can use it to hold a boundary too. And empathy.
Yeah.
So even if you don't agree with someone, just being able to say, wow, that's an interesting point of view. It sounds like, what's something wild someone said recently that I could use this for? It'll say my daughter, who is my 16-year-old, who's still determined to listen to Drake. I could just like, wow, that's an interesting point of view. I don't agree with you, and I prefer to not listen to Drake in the car, but I understand why you have decided to make this decision. Right. And so I can like express that I disagree while also understanding her logic for why she's doing it and not getting into a place of me needing to force my will upon her. She is a quadruple Scorpio, and the more I try to make her do things or convince her of something, the harder she will resist and dig herself into her position. So if I can let that go, then more likely that she will over time grow out of like liking to listen to Drake.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the example that you're giving is certainly with somebody who you love very much, and opinions are whatever, right? When we get into, are we dealing with facts? I think that starts to become a more challenging issue. We are no longer very much grounded in a facts based economy. And I think that those of us who are have an obligation to stay in that reality. That does not mean we have to badger anybody with facts. You don't have to convince anybody that we landed on the moon or that rainbows don't have an end. You don't have to tell anybody. They just like, hey, let them figure it out, or don't. You know, if it's a non-harmful disagreement, whatever. Now, if it is a fundamental disagreement, as strong as X, Y, or Z group of people should not exist anymore. Mhm. Engaging may not be our strongest tool. That I would just offer that. Not engaging is the move, and or
Have you
ah
have you come into a space where you had to have that conversation with someone?
yes, and or I was not talking about that wonderful television show. Can mock, which I will do on occasion, and sometimes I will do that to serve as a possibility model for people who are uncomfortable with actually shutting things down when they need to be shut down.
Can
Um,
you share
but that's
more
about it.
about the context? Because I have some assumptions about the context in which you're doing this. Is probably not with family members or your next door neighbor. Are you speaking more about like the internet and comedy shows and places where you're engaging in public? Or are you speaking about like personal relationships?
No, just public engaging, and again, with family as well. I do have a two family members who with whom I do not bucks. That's just not for me. And it is a matter of there will only be escalation if there is engagement, and I don't think that's good for anybody. So I try to whoop, keep my distance
Yeah.
so that it doesn't get icky.
I mean, it's like when we talked about humiliating
Not my
leaders,
child.
but
It's not
not
my child. Very
enforcers
different.
or allies in the training, right?
Yeah.
And that's because it's public. When you're going after a leader you're not in personal relationship with, it's a public act of humiliation or ridicule to minimize their power because of the way that it impacts everyone else in that spectrum if you do it well.
Yes.
And so it's really different to think about if you are in a public setting, like you're a comedian and that's part of your role in doing that. Or sometimes for us as facilitators and trainers, we have on occasion made an example out of someone because it served a function in the room, and weighing the benefits and burdens of who's going to benefit if we don't address this, who will be burdened if we do or if we don't, have, especially in the cases where white folks have potentially caused racialized
Overstepped.
harm in the moment or wild out or whatever you want to call it, have kindly and firmly made an example of someone in the moment because we were thinking about the impact on everyone in the room, not just on that one individual. Now, if we're in a
Yeah.
one-on-one coaching session with someone, we'll do it in a different way because our goal in that case, our relationship is with this person and they are working with us towards trying to grow and improve. So it's not a place where we're going to humiliate or shame someone. They might say a similar thing, but in that setting, they're not causing harm to other people. And so we can engage with that in a different way around
Yeah.
just,
That's a discussion. That's a discussion.
mhm,
Yeah, that is a paid discussion. And that's why I'm there. If you are not if it's causing you discomfort and it's not your job to solve whatever this is or to work through it with them, you can walk away.
yeah.
You can say, hey, listen, I really cannot talk about this with you. I apologize. I gotta go and be done
Right. So
and be done.
it matters what the setting is, who's impacted, and what the relationship is, and how much control you have over whether or not you're in a relationship with this person. I would say if you got a neighbor who likes to trade food out of the garden, but you know that they're a MAGA supporter, I would probably just avoid all political conversations with them. Because if the electrical grid goes down and y'all need to like share water and food and whatever to survive, I think that is more important than agreeing on politics. If there's
Um,
someone who's like an ICE agent actively causing harm to people, that might be a different thing where you want to think about how to apply pressure to them.
yeah, I'm gonna counter and say that is a white people only piece of advice. Do not brown or black people accept any food from anybody that you know is an active MAGA supporter right now. I'm saying that based on the things that I'm seeing happen across the United States. and for your safety.
What are you
Do
seeing happen?
not. I am seeing that set up as a trap to get snatched up by ICE. I am seeing that put out as food that has been actively poisoned.
Are you
I
saying you have seen examples of this
Oh
happening, or
yes,
you're fearful that that
absolutely.
might
No,
happen?
I am
People have
telling you,
offered
yes,
their neighbors
absolutely
of color food
one
and poisoned them?
hundo,
Okay.
one hundo. And the girl who put, oops, I wasn't trying to gender or to announce who it was.
I
There's
mean,
a
why would
place.
this be a person we want to protect? I think you should tell us.
Well, there's a woman in Oregon who is actually Oregon and Washington. I can't remember which now, but they pepper sprayed an entire meal of an immigrant family, left it on their doorstep, pepper sprayed the whole thing, poisoned them both. They both went to the hospital. She is in prison.
Good,
I
as
would
she should be.
suggest that if your neighbor is flying MAGA flags right now, mm-mm. 8 years ago, yes. Now, absolutely not.
Yeah, I'm saying again, we got to think about where they are on that spectrum, right? Like, do what you need to do for your safety. And I'm thinking about, for me, and I'm a white person, I'm thinking about my white family members. I'm thinking about my relationship with my father. My father does not vote. He's not actively causing harm to anyone. He definitely watches too much Fox News, or did when he had cable, but he can't afford it anymore, and he's losing his Medicare, so he's becoming somewhat disenchanted, but he still feels the need to identify with that. So I do not engage with him in those conversations. It makes it harder for me to talk to him much at all these days, just because he's not willing to hold space for what's happening in my life the way I'm willing to hold space for what's happening in his. So it's a divide. He calls and asks me for advice about how to manage conflict with his neighbor, his landlord, or whoever else. And when I have capacity, I'm happy to do that for him. But that it doesn't go both ways.
Yeah.
He's not willing to reckon with the cognitive dissonance of being so firm in his beliefs about knowing the right way and being aligned with the good side, and then wrestling with the actual impacts it's creating for his children and grandchildren's families and lives. And so in that case, and so that's why I think, again, it's to be thoughtful about, what do you know about this person in real life. Um, and there are times where we may have to, I don't know, if there's a natural disaster, if you're stuck without electricity or power or food, or things really go wild, I think it's better to have rapport with the people that you share proximity with, if you need to meet each other's basic survival needs, than to be that. But that is my perspective as a person who navigates the world as a white woman.
Yeah, that's one of those moments for me where it's like, okay, well, we take different lessons from the great dictator because no, nope, absolutely not. You flying some Trump flags? No.
But the dude
If it
saved
gets
his life. He
wild,
saved his life. He saved the Nazi pilot's life, and then the Nazi pilot saved his life. Then he saved the Nazi pilot's life again,
and they
and then he
both did
got him
that,
to, so it was actually having rapport and not fighting about who was on the right or wrong side, that they saw each other's common humanity.
so that was the thing you saw. What I was seeing very clearly was that there was a full occupation and people had to hide. And if you were in the street, they were likely to kick your ass.
Yes.
And what I also see is what's happening in the actual world right now, like right this very moment. And that is the piece that for me, right? I'm not talking about your father. I am talking about actual things that are happening elsewhere.
Hmm.
The impact is that people are getting ICE called on them in those emergencies by said neighbors. That
And in some
and
places,
it's going to get and it's gonna get
yeah.
worse. The next step is they're gonna get shot. So I
And
am not promoting that. I cannot promote make shake hands with your neighbor over the fence who's flying a Trump flag if you are a black, brown person and certainly not an immigrant. I'm sorry, I can't.
No, and that's not what I'm suggesting. Especially, I don't. A lot of those people have taken their flags down at this point. I'm saying, what's it going to take to survive? But this is a good example of dealing with someone who has a different perspective from you, which is acknowledging that we have different perspectives. I'm not trying to convince you that I'm right or you're wrong. I'm saying that it's very nuanced and depends on where you are and what you know about the people around you and what relationship you're in with them. And also, absolutely, my perspectives are informed by my identity and my lived experiences.
Yeah,
And you're
and
moving from a
far
place of
away the
wanting to
skin you're
protect
in.
people and understanding and wanting, I think, me and others to realize how um, serious and severe the risks and threats against Black and Brown folks are right now.
Well, I mean, are escalated. Yeah, they are openly so, right? I mean, they literally just found a young man hanging from a tree in the South, a young hiker, right?
Mm-hmm.
The examples that I gave you are live examples that happened within the last 2, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not like far away stuff. This is the people are setting traps for immigrants. Um, and they're going to get more desperate, right? The ones who are locked in are going to get more desperate. If they are some, if it is somebody who is ready to switch sides, I think you got a very different conversation. If you're stuck at work, I think you don't have a conversation. Um, these are just not safe times. These are
Yeah.
just not safe times.
Not to go the Pollyanna route, but I am also just remembering the when you were on tour and how many places you went to were like, ooh, Boise, Idaho. Oh, you're going where? And being concerned that you were in some areas that were, overwhelmingly Trump supporting areas, but also found a lot of people were very supportive and it meant a lot for you to be there.
It did. And a year ago, it was something that was much, much more navigable. Um, some of the places that we ended up, including one that Dahlia and I both make mention of quite often, uh, absolutely not. There is nothing that would have made us stay where we were.
Yeah.
And so yeah, once upon a time, right? But also like once upon a time, like, we were not in a state of emergency. I mean, the ratcheting up is happening. It
It
truly
certainly
is
still
happening.
felt like an emergency last year, even though things have gotten worse. It wasn't
Oh,
it
yeah,
wasn't
they're
a
tightening
good
the screws.
time.
They are tightening the screws, and they are
Yeah.
doing so quite intentionally because of. And again, I'm not trying to poop in anybody's punch about it. This is just where we are, right? And we have to understand where we are in the timeline of this struggle because it is a struggle and it's going to take time, right?
Mhm.
I think that in healing, if you know that this is somebody stepping away, yes, absolutely. In family, I can't speak to it in a white family at all. So I don't know, right?
Yeah.
But for the safety of folks in the moment, we are like well past the point of the kids are trying to hide and figure out what's going on in Switzerland. This is not the last scene anymore in Sound of Music. Like we're in this shit. And that people are weaponizing these sorts of systems, right? And so
Mhm.
that's why the folks who are using underground systems for that kind of mutual aid are using them, right? So for me, I get anxious about the idea of just saying um, or advising um, to look for the goodness in folks to be able to bring them like it's to be able to make peace at this moment in history.
I'm just saying if you stuck with people you can't get away from because they live across the fence, figuring out how to minimize antagonism may be in your best interest. I'm not saying trust them or eat the food they bring you if you don't trust them that much. I'm just saying keeping yourself safe by maintaining some kind of rapport might be better than digging into antagonizing tactics if you cannot
Yes,
get away.
yes, Yes.
right? If you don't
And
have
now
that.
we're talking, and I also would offer, right? Like, as I'm looking back at the question, because our hypotheticals got very specific, engaging with people uh, with different views in meaningful ways, right?
Yeah, I think we've done that here because I
Yes,
think it's more important to think about how to do that with
yes,
the people we are working with because there's so many times that because of trauma, because of our different lived experiences, where a difference of opinion about a strategy or a tactic can turn into like a feud of the ages, even
yeah,
though we're actually on the same side. So hopefully we've demonstrated a
yeah,
little bit of that here in this conversation. The same thing goes. It's an interesting point of view. Could you tell me more about that? Identifying what are the needs and interests and positions. You know, if you can go through that iceberg thing that we did in the training, what's your position? What's the interest underneath that? What are the needs and values down there? Then you can like understand where the other person's coming from. And if you can reflect back what you heard them say in a way where they say, yes, exactly, even if you don't agree with them, that is empathy and that is a foundation of trust you can start to build upon because instead of feeling misunderstood, you're getting to a place of saying, even if we disagree, I understand where you're coming from. And if I trust that you heard what I said and I heard what you said, we can be like, well, you know, we're not actually dealing with any MAGA people in our immediate context. So this is more of a thought experiment than it is like a practical, tactical thing we need to agree on in this moment so we can move back to whatever the work is at hand.
yeah. Well, in the yes and of like, because we went through the practice, right? Um, Getting to a place of one being able to hear each other and give that spaciousness, right? Um, to be very clear, this because I there's a kind of training I hate, and it's the one where people act a, a disagreement or make a game of your shit. This was us finding clarification over what is very heightened for both of us right now because of very personal associations and learning that yes and is the answer to this one, right? Because it as we both took it to the most extreme, we also placed the people that we love in those extremes, and in those instances based on their lived experiences, identities, where they are, what that means, it's a different answer because it is nuanced, right? And even in, and especially in a world that is looking for totalitarian answers, mm, that is being forced into accepting totalitarian answers, looking for and remembering to look for the shadows and the nuance seems to be, in my mind, um, what we were doing. And it seems to be the most important thing, and being able to understand all aspects of it, even when it's frustrating, because, we're all in a slight state of alarm right now. And just a slight one, just a small itty bitty going to war with who? What is happening today? I'm not going to look. I haven't looked. I'm not going to
Well,
look.
and I'll also say, like, we're able to communicate with each other in this way, partly just because whatever neurodivergences we both occupy, in some way we have no choice. And it's just how we are. But also, more seriously, you know, we've been working together for over a decade, and there's
This is our
genuine.
15-minute version. This is a 15-minute version of a conversation that we were going to answer 8 questions. This is the kind of neurodivergence we have. Just to be clear, what is being said, this is who we are. Please continue. I just wanted to add some flavor, some sprinkles to the cupcake that you are cooking right there.
you are
It's a delicious
you are
cake.
pointing
It's a
out how long
delicious
it's
cake.
taken by interrupting me to take even longer to talk about how long we're taking.
It's a delicious cake
Okay.
of again nuance.
Thank you. um Love and trust, where we can make those kind of comments to each other. know they were going to be okay. We didn't start that way a decade ago, right? There were times where we had some hard conversations. Like, I don't know if if we will still have a working relationship after this. Times where I needed to receive some hard feedback and figure out how to integrate it. Times where I had to give some hard feedback and not know. The trust got built by being able to work through those things. There was no guarantee Carlos was going to take feedback I offered that
Through
was
the
challenging to hear
fire,
well.
it's
Um,
gonna
we built
be
built that trust over
through
time
the
in going through. Dude, I'm trying to be serious. Are you singing
I'm done.
songs?
I know. No, no. I'm adding flavor again. The nuance through
No,
the
you're
fire. Through
interrupting
the
me when I'm
fire.
trying to say something serious to be the center of attention.
Keep saying your thing.
Mm-hmm. Um, Cycles of harm and repair, and to get to a point where we can provide that kind of direct feedback in the moment. This is not scripted. This is just how we are, and nobody's here watching, so we're kind of extra authentic. Um, is how you do that, right? And being able to be in a place where you can give each other feedback and like receive it in the moment and move on. And I'm not going to be sitting here like thinking about it for 2 weeks or something because I've done my own work to process my own stuff. Is possible. It takes work. It's easier said than done because a lot of us are carrying a lot of I say here because a lot of it energetically is in the chest. A lot of like constriction and contraction and fear around who's going to accept me or if I'm going to be exiled or if I'm going to die, if I'm embarrassed, or there's just like the feeling like if I'm embarrassed or if I make a mistake, I'm going to die or the earth's going to swallow me up or I wish the earth would swallow me up. Like there's so many places where I think it's so important to understand the nervous system and trauma and be doing our own work because then these things are much easier to manage than if that kind of feedback is like catching some hook in you and now it's going to be a month or this person's going to be your mortal enemy because they told you to like chill out for a second.
Oh, that was it. Yeah. No, I don't know. The level of wild unmasking that is witnessed as you Teresa, as you just suggested, is certainly part of what happens as we're having these discussions and there's nobody here because it's weird. One, also because we record a podcast, and so sometimes it's like, wait, what are we doing right now? And following the thread of which of the many, 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 many conversations we have is challenging, and um, being able to even in the moment, as you said, challenge one another either uh through like, hey, this is who we are, what are we going to do, and the hey, i I gotta oh, I was listening to music, I had to listen to some music earlier, I'm stimming this morning, and let me say this too, to you, Teresa, and to everybody. I was also with a lot of other people because both Teresa and I said this about ourselves this morning, who are full mask off today. I don't know what is happening for folk in the moment at large. Again, stress. But the numbers of people I have been around in person, in community, and it's people with whom I work, people who I love, and we are all full mask off right now. And it is quite a lot. It is quite a lot. But
There are
we
times to
make
wear a
space for each
mask,
other.
like to not get COVID, or if you are have tear gas being thrown at you. There are times where you need to wear a mask. You don't need to.
Yeah,
This
yeah, yeah.
may not be one of them, but there are times
We,
when masks
yeah.
are useful.
Now we're talking about public masks for neurodivergent purposes. We are not suggesting that you walk around without a mask, nor that you put on a Nazi mask and start hunting down immigrants. That
No,
is not what we're
we'll
saying.
save this one for the ableism conversation. But there are times where a little bit of masking may be beneficial to your ability to build relationships with people and achieve your goals. If your need is to be fully unmasked and let all of your sims and all your things just be free in every setting, that may not be beneficial to your goals and strategies.
Yeah, nor
But right
anyone's.
here,
Again, with
we
community
have enough trust and love to annoy each
and
other
trust.
and understand where it's coming from and move on. I do want to do this one other question real quick before we wrap up, if you consent to a little bit more time.
Oh, this is our 15 minutes. Absolutely, I do.
No, it was
Let's
supposed to
do
be
it.
45 and we
Oh,
started
was
this.
it?
Yeah.
I thought she said 15. Okay, let's go.
You always
Let's get
think
it.
that. I never say that because you and
I
I
don't know
cannot
what, I
have
don't
a
know.
conversation in 15 minutes.
That I was agreeing. I said that earlier.
Okay.
Yes. What is the other
I don't know why
question?
you keep carrying this myth of a 15-minute conversation we've got to have because it does not happen. I never planned for 15 minutes. That's not reasonable for us.
Now you're sprinkling on the cupcake. What is our question?
All right. So these are someone's answers from the registration questions. They said they're looking for
Oh,
tools for navigating hierarchical power structures that are directed by secret authoritarians, techniques for circumventing the underlying structures of white supremacy without triggering the white fragility of those in charge. And the biggest conflict right now, this is the same person, trying to promote pro-human, pro-worker attitudes and policies in an environment that values profit, efficiency, and comfort of the bosses over the needs and lives of the workers. Having to tiptoe around their ignorance of their own racism and misogyny, feeling alone in my awareness of and desire to change the exploitative practices of those in power in my organization. So the first thing we're going to say is it's not a time to quit your job, but is this the place you need to be trying to do this work?
this work. We're talking about the real work. This may not be this place to get a paycheck, it sounds like. This don't sound like the place to try to like change the world and turn it into Shangri-La. It does not sound like this is your Brigadoon. This sounds like I don't know, maybe Dante's sixth ring of hell. I don't know that it's a good idea if you are alone, uh, 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 unless you have power. Now that's a different conversation. But if you have power, then you're not alone because that's what power means, regardless of your position. If you have positionality to find out if there is collective awareness enough to create power or to do a power analysis, then you could think about movement within. But aside that, what you're describing is the problem. Well, it's part of exactly the problem that we were just talking about, right? This is one of those, this is that moment, right? In any other circumstance, I would say get the hell out. Period. Like that would be the best advice. This is not that circumstance. We are not in that time anymore. There aren't jobs everywhere for everybody. There's no jobs for anybody. And the economy's fucked up. And that was done on purpose so that we couldn't leave our jobs. So, oh,
Yeah,
I,
there's some, I mean, it's just a couple jobs. I mean,
yeah,
you
I mean,
can't look
there's
for
two or three
them.
there.
You
You
could,
can't look for them, but yeah,
yeah, it's hard to get a job right now. Lots and lots of applicants for every open position. We love
very
to tell people
desperate
to quit
time.
their jobs, but we are not doing that right now because we need to
No, not in
survive
this
and
economy.
you need to survive. So
Not in this economy.
I
So
would
that
say,
said, please, I was going to finish a
go
thought,
ahead,
and then please you
finish.
go. So here's the flip side of that. Here's the because the pancake's never done until you flip it over. So here's the flip side of that, right? Is that take care of yourself regardless of what the fuck happens next. And by that, I don't mean start committing yourself to the role of Don Quixote and work. I don't mean like just it's bubble baths. I mean be with the community who you trust away from work to do this work And that will kind of, I swear to you, shimmy that feeling of ick off your back around how much of it you have to see and witness and navigate and negotiate at work. It really truly does. I'm sorry, that was the whole pancake Teresa syrup, please.
Well, I was just going to say, we've been doing organizational transformation work for the past decade, specifically around racial justice and racial equity. And there just are conditions for success. And if those conditions for success are not present, you will be banging your head into a brick wall repeatedly, mostly causing damage to yourself more than you are causing any real change in the organization. So, those conditions for success are there has to be some buy in from top leadership. If they're willing to say the words and they have some basic capacity for self-reflection and change, even if they're really far behind where you'd like them to be, we can work with those people, but there must be some like buy-in and commitment from the top to those ideals. If
Yeah,
there's
that's not a
not,
secret Nazi. Secret Nazi ain't that.
it's very, very challenging to move things if you don't have buy-in from the top. If you have a strong enough collective interest and commitment at the like um, frontline worker level, then that's a place to start thinking about unionizing if you're not already unionized. If you're already unionized, is your union leadership in support of the things that you're trying to move? If yes, then work with your union and start pushing it through contract negotiations and targeting specific members of management or leaders who are the most problematic people who are causing harm with the union mechanisms available to you, like grievance processes and claims and that sort of thing. If you don't have a union and you have enough people who are on your side, it's a good time to unionize so that you can build that worker level power and have more places to negotiate. You can't do it by yourself. There's not a secret strategy as an
Nope.
individual in hostile territory
Nope.
or flipping a bunch of, open or not, white dominant culture people into caring about things I don't care about.
No matter
So,
who you are, you cannot Tarzan these white people. If you are white people, you cannot Tarzan these white people. I'm telling
so
you, it's not
this,
we it's not you can't do it alone. You can't
and
do
we've
nothing
spoken,
alone.
I would go watch the conversation we had about dealing with problematic white people in activist spaces, and that's, I think, most of what we shared there also goes for dealing with problematic white people at work. They don't have to be your best friends, they don't have to understand everything if you can get them to be useful,
And it
right?
could
So
be
giving
problematic
people,
any people, but problematic white people in particular.
yeah, absolutely, where can they be useful, what are they good at? If we can shift our focus away from what's wrong with people to what are they actually good at, we've seen a lot of people be able to change their relationships, like people who had a new director and they're not as good on this one particular issue as we wish they were, but they're really good at this other thing. It's like, well, focus on this thing they're good at. How can that be of service to what you're trying to accomplish? Everyone's not going to do everything you want them to do. Everybody's not good at everything. But if you can shift out of the focus of like what's wrong with people to what are they good at, then you can start figuring out how you can, as a leader, whether that's informal or otherwise, start bringing their skills and talents towards a particular goal instead of being upset that everybody's not doing everything the way you would do it, which is where a lot of us can spend our time, unfortunately. But so this question about how techniques for circumventing the underlying structures of white supremacy without triggering white fragility in those in charge. You can't do that.
Mm-mm.
That
Nope.
is impossible.
Nope.
It's a beautiful dream, but it's impossible. You can't
Nope.
avoid triggering white fragility. You need to have really strong boundaries to deal with white fragility, right? And so that's not accommodating it, not being afraid of it. And we see people in leadership positions take a couple different tacks. One of them is to just collapse into like victim mode of, I can't believe you don't trust me. And I can't believe you would think that I could ever, it's
You
just
call
doing
me
like
racist. I
victim
don't
martyr
have a
mode.
racist bone in my body because that's where the racism lives, right next to the marrow.
Then there's just the really toxic, hostile people that everyone's afraid of because they will yell and scream at people um, or try to get people fired or retaliate. Um, and
And
again,
then
the
there's the
only
hostile people who will fire you.
So there's, I'll take it back. There's not maybe no way, but it's challenging. So you can get people to think it was their idea if you have that skill set. If you know that this person in this leadership position is really interested in their personal public persona and like putting out certain performance, you could have conversations with them, be like, oh yeah. I mean, I think if you went out and gave a statement about how important it is to continue fighting for racial justice in this moment, that would be really impactful and it would help raise your profile, it help the organization. And even if you know this person is performative and does not walk the talk, even if you could get them to go give that speech because it helps build leverage to move something else within the organization because now they've publicly committed themselves to it and then you can hold them accountable to that. Sure. That's that you need to have a lot of skills to be able to maneuver someone that way, and it probably won't go exactly the way you think it's going to go. You need to have trust, they need to trust you, you need to have access to them, they need to like be open to you being able to slip in a suggestion here and there. That's not easy to do. I think we see it in
Yeah.
like movies and TV and think that you can do that, but it's quite challenging.
No, that
More or less you just need boundaries. Be like, you're not the victim here. So if you need to go cry, go talk to your therapist. And when you're ready to have a professional conversation, we'll come back. Again, hard to do if you're not the one in a position of if you don't have some position of authority or you're not peers. Like you can have different conversations with a peer if you're both directors than you can have with someone who's several layers above you or below you in the hierarchy.
Yeah, and again, gird your loin, and we all are aware, as we said, and I didn't realize that we moved on to another question because I was going to get scoldy now because I was like, "What are you talking about? We just said not at all." Uh, we're in a dangerous time, and it's not an expensive time, and there are not a plethora of opportunities around right now. um when folks say people want to work, it's not that people want to go to work. People know that in order to eat we have to go to work to get the money to do it. That's what people want to go to work for. So keep your job if you can, and it is safe enough, right? And again, one against 1,000, or one gorilla versus 1,000 race. I don't know what the people are doing now, what the youngs are doing, 6 7, whatever it is. One person, you're not
They're
going to
so
do
off that
this.
now.
Are they off that? Okay. One person is not going to move through the wake of racism. While I will say, and I will continue to argue that yes, we must fight against racism, against misogyny, against these things. If you're working for a corporation, and part of what they produce is racism and misogyny and these things, and you know it, but you cannot afford to not have a job, guess what? Keep your job and then work against the interests of that corporate entity in your time. And one way or the other, we're gonna get caught. Like it's just true. But we may get caught in victory. And we can get caught in victory if we keep doing the work and keep our jobs
What are
for
you
as long as
imagining
possible.
in your brain? I don't know what any of that actually means. Like, tell me a story that goes along with the words you just said. Get caught in victory.
Oh, 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 oh. I mean that the cultural turmoil that is at hand throughout the United States is at some point going to once again meet its resolution. At that point, we may be on the side of that we'd like to be on. I don't know.
So you're saying go to work, keep your job, do what you got to do to keep your job, and then go do your organizing activism on the side. And even if you end up getting fired, maybe
If
we'll
you
be on
one
the winning
person
side
down,
anyway.
yes. Yeah,
Okay.
and knowing that you may end up getting fired by for doing that, by doing
Mm.
that some next way.
Well, I think that's an important thing to think about is like, where are your lines where you're willing to risk your job and your livelihood? Right.
Yeah.
And there's no guarantee you're not going to lose your job right now, given the state of the economy and all the things that are happening anyway. So, like, I think thinking about if I was going to lose my job, what would I want it to be for? Right? What would I be willing to sacrifice my employment for? So that we're not getting into the place of like, I can't lose my job of fear around because I have to pay my mortgage and my kids. And we get into that place and that fear kind of shuts us down and then we're not able to like step up and take action because we're moving from fear and trying to avoid a negative consequence instead of thinking where is the line and what would I be willing to get fired for. What are the things that are important enough that I would be willing to sacrifice my job, knowing it would cause me some hardship and I maybe would or wouldn't be able to get unemployment? Would I or would I not be able to sue for wrongful termination? Right. And that takes time and money and a lawyer, and that is not a thing. But to think through like where are these places where you're actually willing to move. And again, given all you shared, doesn't sound like you have the conditions for success in this workplace, but maybe you do. Right. So in that place, I say, like, who is on your team? Who are you moving with? If it's not a formal union, workers union, who are your colleagues? Go out and have coffee and lunch with people and see who is most in alignment with you, who you don't realize. Develop relationships with people who are in the higher levels of the organization where you can, if it's through mentorship or asking them for career advice or something you don't even care about, but they like to talk about snow skiing or their dogs, so you like, oh yeah, I have a dog like that too. I don't know, talk about the things that are interesting to them so you can build relationships and start to assess who is actually already on your side, you don't realize it, who is sympathetic to your cause and could potentially be activated to do more, and who are like the ops. And the ops you want to have good relationships with too, because then you can understand what you're actually up against. Right. Once they know you're an op, then you're like antagonistic, and then it's much harder to get information.
By good
As an
relationship,
organizer.
communicative, be next to them, be able to hear what they're saying, not give up your information. Right. It is
Build.
not about
Mhm.
it. Like it doesn't have to be a cute rapport. You just got to be able to kiki about like lunch. That's it.
Yeah. And build a coalition and be clear about like what for. If you're like pro worker, pro human, pro worker attitudes and policies in a environment that values profit, efficiency, and comfort of the bosses. So, like, is there one worker policy that would make a big impact if you could change that policy for a lot of people? Could you rally a bunch of your colleagues to work with you to pressure the agency to change this one policy? What is the low hanging fruit? A lot of times we'll throw that in wave like, well, that won't really matter because we haven't addressed the bigger issue of. It's like, but it does matter. If you can convince enough of your colleagues to work on some low hanging fruit that's actionable, practical, doesn't cost the agency a lot, and helps you all feel like you just achieved success, that is a success, a foundation that you can build upon, right? If you go for, we want to flatten the hierarchy and fire all the managers, you're probably not going to get very far as your first goal. But if you started working from, we're going to change this one policy about like days off, and then we're going to, form a union, and then we're negotiate for it, maybe you could get there, but it takes time, and going straight for the hardest thing that feels like the root cause, like, especially as neurodivergent people who see the patterns, like, but if we could change this, that would fix it. It's like, yeah, but you can't. You don't have enough power to do that right now. So you have to start building power little by little by building relationships, finding a clear strategic action that's achievable and realistic, getting people success and achieving those small things so we can start achieving bigger things together.
Yeah, I literally was even for myself just writing down, that's why it is necessary for us to celebrate and for us to laugh and for us to start small, right? We have to start with the achievable thing first. You have to, I mean, that's how you begin to learn which are the pressure points, which are you don't just take apart. It took forever to get to the center of the Death Star. You don't just, it's a lot of people had to die for that to happen, figure that out. You don't just like start with shooting at a hole and hoping to God it does something. Like until you learn the schematics, you can't do that. You got to start by learning the schematics. You got to go shoot the, what were they, wampos or whatever they. I am not a, listen, I'm only a minimally Star Wars guy. I don't know and what Luke shot the what at the swamp rats. He shot swamp rats,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the same size, right? But like before you get there, so many people have to have done so much work. The hero's journey is not the hero's journey. You may not be the person who ultimately flips the switch that flips over the entire organization into the beautiful thing. You may be the person who organizes the union, which is getting the plans together, which is doing the mapping. Or again, it may be time to go. If you have the ability to take care of yourself and or a place to land. Not don't just jump out of a plane. Like make sure you have a place you're going if you're going to go. But if you cannot, again, we're in the early stages of this shit with this government. I highly suggest you just kind of hold tight and like let's get through these midterms theoretically. Early votes are coming in. Also, other things are happening. My phone just told me distressing news, so I'm not going to look at it again.
And just, yeah, every battle is not worth fighting. Every
No,
battle is not winnable. Every battle is
no.
not worth your time or energy. And so being really thoughtful about where and how you're directing your time and energy. And again, that piece around the trauma of like when we're getting hooked into things and it feels like we have no choice is often coming from a place of a trauma response from past things. Not to say it's not currently traumatic and what you're dealing with, but it's usually heightened by those other when it feels like we're reacting and compulsive and it's like occupying us instead of a thing we're making choices about how to navigate is a place to look into some practices that are going to support your well-being, so that you can make decisions about which battles to fight and which ones to just like it hurts sometimes be like we're not going to win this one, tried everything we could try, we're not going to win this one, time to move on and see where my time and energy might be better spent. Okay, last thing I want to speak to and then we'll wrap up. um Said something about having to tiptoe around their ignorance of their own racism and misogyny. And this is the same person talking about how to avoid triggering white fragility, which said you can't. And I will
Yeah.
say, and this is a hard thing to say, and I've said it to someone else recently, which is tiptoeing around something is a choice you are making, right? And so you get to choose if you still want to continue to tiptoe around it or if you want to provide them with direct feedback about it. And that, again, nuance and understanding the context and who you're dealing with, what the potential for actual retaliation is. Them getting upset or having feelings, not really your problem. If they can fire you because they had a feeling, that is your problem. So understanding how much risk you're taking in doing that is important, but you don't have to tiptoe around it. You can be like, that was really problematic what you just said. And the more you can get away from labels of like, that was racist, the better, because then we're fighting over a label instead of talking about what they actually said of like, so if someone makes a joke and be like, I don't get what was funny about that joke. Making them explain how their racism was funny is a better strategy than just saying, don't tell racist jokes. That wasn't a racist joke, because then you're going to battle about whether your label or your interpretation of what they've done is an issue instead of talking about the actual issue. Um, so if it's
May I ask, are you again visualing white on white crime?
often, but I'm just going to the place of like where we said stop talking about equity, right? Stop arguing about the word equity and say what you really mean. Are you talking about differential treatment? Are you talking about discrimination? Are you talking about policies that will lead to a more just future? Like being more clear about what we're saying. I think there's so many times that using the labels, I'm not saying what they did isn't racist. I'm saying arguing about a label of whether or not the label racist applies is where those conversations often detour, and being able to just say why what they said was problematic is more important than being able to convince them it was racist. Like
Yeah.
it sounds like you're
So
making fun of people for their national origin or their language or whatever. The more you can specifically say what they're doing is more helpful than applying a label alone.
again, yes, and right. Uh, Black, brown folk, black, brown women, queers. Yeah, you gotta explain shit to know, but just walk away. Fuck them. Fuck them. If they telling some racist bullshit and you know that's what it is, you do not have to sit there for their punchline in the meeting, at the lunch table, in the fuck them. Just get it now. I'm not saying make a whole big ass scene and like start. I'm just saying,
Maybe,
like you could very
maybe
oh,
not.
maybe,
Depends.
maybe depending on how far they went.
You need
But
to.
if they are doing it in front of you, and I'm saying this because I moved to the Pacific Northwest, and I know how some of y'all be rolling. I know how some of y'all Mexicans be rolling and feeling real nervous about like what to do. Leave.
Hmm.
You leave
Yeah.
and leave them there. And you ain't gotta explain shit. They know what they did. They did it on purpose. They did it on purpose. Ain't nobody telling no racist jokes in front of you on accident. That's wild work. And the only way you could think that is if you got fooled into it over time. And that's your thing to figure out, which again comes down to the place of what Theresa was talking about you don't got to be walking on eggshells for people. You know what it feels like when it's happening. And if it's being directed indirectly toward you or people you love, step out or step up.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think I was thinking more about folks who are not impacted by the thing being said and interrupting the racism and misogyny. If you're the one being impacted, absolutely you need to make whatever choices best serve your well-being. You know your survival skills, you know which ones are working, which ones are not. And in those circumstances, if you're dissatisfied, if you're dissatisfied with how it's left you feeling, I'd say you could just look through that conflict strategies chart that we have with the oranges. So like, yeah, you can avoid, you can just ignore it and walk away. That's perfectly reasonable if you're trying to protect yourself and there's not support and there's a high risk of retaliation. You can try to explain it to them if that feels useful, if it seems like someone you have some rapport or relationship with who might be open to understanding and you're willing to do that work. You're not required to. White folks, there's a higher bar for us. We are more required to. Like, you need to go put in that work and hold people accountable for harm that they're creating. Even if it puts you at risk, because it's not putting us at risk as much as it is our colleagues of color to challenge those things. And oftentimes that's when we freeze and are fearful and don't know what to do. And even if you didn't interrupt in the moment, you can always come back later and be like, hey, so and so, you said this thing, it made me really uncomfortable because it sounded like you were saying that, blah, 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 and be able to reflect those things back to them clearly. Um, if it's really egregious and you have some mechanism for it in your agency and your HR department is not white supremacist, then you might need to go file a grievance or a complaint or whatever else is available to you. That would be in that compete part of the spectrum. So if there's some place where you're like, I'm not sure what to do by not satisfied with the way I'm managing it right now, I would go look at that chart and think about one strategy in each of those different categories that you could potentially use to help you just generate more ideas of what you could do next. And then you can decide which one might best serve your immediate goals in your context.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the menu of choices that may be available, right? In that kind of a circumstance. Um, and again, as with the our my part of our answers to these questions, if you haven't got a power base of your own beyond you and your awareness and or feelings, um, in this particular instance, the thing then is for you to really, really, really do that work around what is making you tiptoe. Meaning what for you, where are you feeling it? What are you afraid of? What is bringing up the fear? Um, is there actual power in the circumstance, or is it really an emotional and a physical response to the idea? And knowing, and we offer many tools, and there are many tools available online elsewhere if you'd rather, but like knowing that moving forward through fear in those sorts of times and moments is the definition of bravery. It's not like anybody just feels. I'm maybe people do. I don't know. I guess I there are people who have what is that thing where they think they're the hero of the book? Theresa, what's
Main
that
main
thing?
character syndrome or something.
Yeah. And they think they can be Captain Courageous and Mrs. America or whatever the superhero of their choice is, and they cannot do it alone. Again, back to the Star Wars thing. Like Luke was like looked at as the hero, and as we all learned, those of us who are old later in our lives, even though we know it was the first movie, that was book 4. A whole bunch of stuff had to happen to go find that kid from the farm to do the thing. And then what happened? They just built it again. Right? Like it's a process. It's a process. And if you're dealing with the people, again, and this goes to all of the questions and all of the people, if the people that you're talking about are folks who are actually actively building that Death Star, mm, right? Like you gotta play it low, keep your receipts, that's the thing. If they build in the Death Star, you on the inside,
Absolutely.
keep the receipts, keep the receipts. You can send those work emails, BCC, to you,
Hmm.
to your personal
Yes.
Hotmail, AOL, some
Stop it.
shit that people
So
don't know. I'm serious.
AOL.
Your old shit, your old
Why?
shit. They like find the old passwords and
Why?
shit because so that it's not a place where they're going to ask you, hey, can we look at your Gmail account or whatever?
Why would they
If
look
they
at my
do,
Gmail account?
I don't know where these people work. I am saying
Okay.
it is time for us to be thinking about protecting ourselves to the best of our ability. You can't
Absolutely.
print it. You can't print it at work. I would suggest if you have a secondary email, as do most of us, if you have a yobby yob, we all have too many goddamn emails. Use one of the older ones, send it to that with your VPN on,
Okay.
you know. I mean, whatever the level of protection is, depending on the business and circumstance.
Yeah.
Again, it's about the nuance.
I'm not clear about using the old emails. You might, I don't understand that part fully, but definitely you sending things from your work email to your personal email with timestamps so you have them is a good
Yes.
strategy. Make sure you have things that if something were to happen and you lost access to your work computer, if you would still have access to those receipts. So going through problematic communications, putting things in writing. So if you have a problematic conversation with someone, sending a
Hey,
follow-up email that
were you
says this is what
saying,
happened, this is what we had this exchange and I didn't, this is how it impacted me, or this is my concern, or as much as you
yep,
can put things like that in writing. And again, send it to yourself. So you have a copy of it in your personal email and keep track of those problematic things. Even if you're not sending it to someone else, if you have a problematic incident that is racist or sexist or something else happening, ableist, go write it all out, write down all the details in the moment or as soon after the incident as you can in an email and email it to your personal account. And that way you'll have it in your personal email at home. There could be times if you're really concerned about security that maybe you want to do that on your phone in a text message or email to yourself from your phone, just so that it's not in their records as well. So you can think that through. But the most important thing is to have timestamps and dates and times of when things happen. So you're developing evidence that could be used if you were going to end up in a legal proceeding for discrimination, hostile work environment, wrongful termination. And a lot of those cases do quite well. Very often they're willing to settle rather than go to court. And so
yeah,
it's not a
can't
bad
sully your
strategy.
reputation.
Mm-hmm. If you can't create the change you want to change in there, at least get some compensation for the harm you've suffered and get out the door so you can get somewhere else where your skills and talents may be better able to create the kind of change you want to make.
Yeah, the last thing about that is as you're collecting your receipts, if you do not have a place to land, do not quit. Keep pushing and gathering your information until they dismiss you or put you on leave, because especially if you feel like that's what's happening. Because if you quit first, it's going to be really hard to get that unemployment and you need it. So don't just up and quit.
FEMLA
unless
is
you have
another
someplace to
one.
land.
If you can get the FEMLA leave, if you could have a therapist or can get a therapist to write and say that you need to, for medical reasons, take some time off work for your health and well-being, you can get yourself a little mini
Medical leave
sabbatical
is
that
great.
way.
Medical leave is great.
And again, that's not going to change the organization. That's trying to help you survive, right? Because if you are just trying to change an organization that does not care about you and is not interested in changing, you're going to harm yourself more than you're going to create any real change in the organization. And we don't need you harming yourself. We need you doing work somewhere where it's useful to the resistance and useful to the world we're trying to build, and not burning yourself out somewhere where you're not going to be able to create that kind of change.
Yeah, to be clear, when we say self-care, that's what we're talking about, not the bubble baths. And
take a bubble bath if you can, but like heal your trauma. Take care of your mental
bubble
health.
bath is sprinkles. Bubble bath is sprinkles.
If a
We
bubble
love
bath
sprinkles
contributes
on
to
the
that, go for it.
frosting. You
Not
know we
everybody got
love
a
this.
bathtub.
We know we love the sprinkles and the frosting. That's what we've been saying from the beginning. But
Not
know that you've got to get the cake done first. And that's the part where we're talking about the real self-care. In addition to, it would be so nice for a bubble bath, but first,
or both ends. You could hatch this plan in the bubble bath if you have a bathtub and bubbles. Go for it. But don't die. I think that is plenty for today. And thank you all for being here with us. And hopefully we'll see you.
I got coffee grounds in my throat. Makes me like Papa. I got coffee grounds in my throat. I'm okay.
It's like the more like smooth and polished I want to be, the more you go out of your way to make sure there's coffee grounds.
I was gonna finish the sentence, but I forgot what it was. Okay.
All right. Take care, buddy. Bye.
What